Have you ever been betrayed by the very people who were supposed to love you unconditionally? Imagine sitting at a dinner table, surrounded by family, when your own mother looks you dead in the eye and says, "You'll never be like your sister. She's the daughter we're proud of." Laughter filled the room, except mine. Because behind their smug smiles was a secret I had carried for years. I had been their lifeline. I had been the one quietly paying the mortgage, the credit cards, even my sister's shiny new car. $60,000. And yet, to them, I was still the disappointment. My name is Rachel Monroe. I'm 30 years old, a corporate analyst living in Chicago. I didn't grow up with privilege, and nothing in my life was ever handed to me. I worked nights through college, balanced 2 part-time jobs while studying, and clawed my way into a career where I finally earned enough to stand on my own 2 feet. On paper, I had done everything right. But in my family, none of that mattered. Because there was Sierra, my older sister, the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. She was the cheer captain in high school, homecoming queen, the girl everyone in town adored. Later, she became a social media influencer, posting curated photos of her perfect life. To my mother, Sierra was a star. To my father, she was untouchable. And me. I was the background character in my own life story, always standing in her shadow. It wasn't always obvious. The favoritism showed in little things, like birthdays. Sierra's gifts sparkled. The newest phone, jewelry, expensive handbags. Mine. Practical socks, a blender, maybe a gift card if I was lucky. When Sierra's car broke down, my parents immediately co-signed a loan for her new one. When mine died, I was told to tough it out and take the bus. Still, I convinced myself they loved us equally, just differently. That was the lie I told myself to survive. As the years passed, the differences became harder to ignore. When Sierra wanted to launch her online brand, my parents dipped into their savings to help her. Meanwhile, I was juggling student loans, begging for extra hours at work, and all I got was, "Rachel, you should learn to manage your money better." But the cracks in my denial turned into an earthquake the night of that infamous dinner party. I had been invited, more like summoned, to a family gathering at my parents' house. Sierra was glowing in the center of the room, talking about her latest brand sponsorship while everyone laughed and clapped like she had just cured cancer. I sat quietly at the end of the table, sipping my wine, waiting for someone, anyone, to acknowledge me. Then it happened. My mother, with her glass raised, looked right at me and said, "Rachel, you'll never be Sierra. She's the daughter we're proud of." The room chuckled, like it was a harmless joke. But I knew it wasn't. The sting was sharper than anything I'd felt before. Not because it was new, but because it was said out loud. Publicly. And no one defended me. Not my father, not even Sierra. They all just let it hang there. But what they didn't know, what not a single one of them suspected, was that for the last 2 years, I had been the one keeping this family afloat. Quietly. Silently. Without recognition. Every month, I wired money to cover the mortgage. When Sierra defaulted on her car payments, I stepped in so my parents wouldn't lose their credit standing. When medical bills piled up, I chipped in, telling myself it was just helping out. Altogether, over $60,000 of my hard-earned salary. Gone. And still, I was the disappointment. Sitting at that dinner table, with their laughter still ringing in my ears, something inside me cracked. 4 years, I had begged for scraps of validation. 4 years, I had been their safety net while they applauded Sierra's every shallow accomplishment. But that night, staring at the family who had drained me dry, I realized something. I wasn't just ignored. I was used. Exploited. And worst of all, I had let it happen. The question was no longer if I would fight back. The only question left was how. At that party, my mother's words weren't just cruel, they were a blade plunged straight into my chest. "You'll never be Sierra," she said, her voice light, almost playful, but sharp enough to slice me open in front of a dozen relatives. The room went silent for half a second, then erupted into awkward laughter, the kind people use to cover discomfort. Everyone thought it was a joke. But I knew it wasn't. She meant it. She had always meant it. And something inside me snapped. Years of swallowing my pride, of telling myself their favoritism wasn't intentional, that deep down they loved me just as much, it all boiled over. I set down my glass of wine, my hands trembling, and before I could stop myself, the words tumbled out. "You know what's funny?" I said, my voice louder than I intended. "The house you're bragging about, the vacations, the champagne you're sipping, it's all been funded by me." The clatter of forks hitting plates echoed around the table. My aunt's jaw dropped. My cousin froze mid-bite. And Sierra, perfect Sierra, blinked at me with wide, confused eyes, like she didn't understand English. I stood up, heart pounding, and laid it all out. "For the past 2 years, I've been paying your mortgage. Every single month. I've covered Dad's medical bills when insurance didn't. I've paid off credit cards so the collectors wouldn't hound you. And Sierra," I turned to my sister, whose flawless smile was faltering, "your student loans, your shiny new Jeep, your designer handbags? Who do you think kept the lights on while you played influencer?" Gasps spread around the table. I could see the cracks spreading through their perfect facade. Sierra's cheeks flushed red, her lips pressed tight. My father leaned back in his chair, pale and stunned. But my mother, she didn't even look shocked. She looked annoyed, irritated, like I had just spilled wine on her carpet. "Rachel," she hissed, her tone sharp but low, "why would you say that in front of everyone? Not thank you. Not we had no idea. Not even we're sorry. Just humiliation, for her. Embarrassment that her little secret was now public knowledge." That was the moment the truth slammed into me. I wasn't their daughter. I was their wallet. Nothing more. The guests excused themselves quickly, muttering about the late hour, but I saw the way they looked at me, as though I had ruined the night. Not Sierra, not my mother with her daggered tongue. Me. When the last door shut and the laughter of strangers faded, the house grew unbearably quiet. I stood there, my chest heaving, waiting for someone to say something. Anything. My father cleared his throat. "Rachel, you didn't need to tell them all that." My mother added, "You made us look ridiculous." "And Sierra," she whispered the words that sealed the coffin, "you're jealous. That's what this is about. You're jealous of me. Jealous. After everything I had sacrificed. After $60,000 of my hard-earned money bled into their debts, their comforts, their luxuries." I laughed, but it wasn't a laugh of humor. It was hollow, bitter, broken. "Jealous? Sierra, I practically bought your life. You'd be living in your car right now if it weren't for me." Her eyes narrowed, her voice sharp. "No one asked you to. You chose to." And there it was. The truth, raw and ugly. They hadn't just taken from me. They had expected it. Entitlement dressed as family loyalty. Love redefined as financial obligation. I grabbed my coat, my purse, and walked out the door. No one followed. Not even my father. The cold Chicago air hit my face like a slap, and for the first time, I saw it clearly. I had spent years begging for scraps of affection from people who would never see me as anything but useful. That night, betrayal crystallized into clarity. I wasn't the daughter they loved. I was the daughter they used. And I vowed then and there, it would never happen again. The night I walked out of that dinner party, something inside me shifted. The girl who once begged for scraps of validation was gone. What remained was sharper, colder, someone who had nothing left to lose and everything to prove. The first step was simple. I stopped paying. Cold turkey. For 2 years, I had carried them like a mule, bleeding out paycheck after paycheck while they basked in the glow of Sierra's success. But overnight, the money dried up. The direct transfers stopped. The auto payments vanished. I flipped the switch, and I let them sink. It didn't take long for the cracks to show. Within 2 weeks, my mother called me in tears, panicked over late mortgage notices piling up in the mailbox. She begged, saying the bank had threatened foreclosure if they missed another payment. My father tried the guilt angle, muttering about family obligations and, "How could you do this to us at Christmas?" And Sierra was the most entertaining of all. She exploded on Instagram Live when her credit card was declined while she tried to flaunt a designer haul. The video went viral for all the wrong reasons. Watching her smile falter, watching the comments flood in, "Can't even pay your bills?" Fake influencer alert was the sweetest appetizer to the revenge I was preparing. But I didn't just cut them off. I started gathering. I pulled every bank statement, every transfer receipt, every Venmo transaction where I had covered bills or wired emergency funds. I built a binder so thick it could break a coffee table. Each tabbed section was labeled mortgage, medical bills, credit cards, Sierra's Jeep, Sierra's student loans. Every dollar was there, traced in black and white, undeniable. Still, evidence alone wasn't enough. Revenge, I realized, was a performance. And timing was everything. So I chose Christmas. When the whole family would gather in that perfectly decorated living room, expecting gifts and carols, I would deliver the truth wrapped tighter than any ribbon. I wouldn't just expose them. I would dismantle their illusions piece by piece. But I wasn't finished yet. If I was going to take down Sierra, the golden child, the untouchable, I needed to strip away not just the support of my parents, but the fragile empire she had built online. So I dug deeper. At first glance, Sierra's influencer world looked flawless. Brand deals, photo shoots, sponsorships. But beneath the glitter was rot. I discovered she had been inflating her numbers, buying followers from shady bot farms. Her engagement rates were suspiciously low. Some of her fans were nothing but empty profiles with stolen photos. I reached out, anonymously, to several of her sponsors. A carefully crafted email here, a discreet message there. I slid proof of her unpaid debts, screenshots of her reckless spending, even clips of her meltdown on Instagram Live. Nothing dramatic, just enough to plant seeds of doubt. And like dominoes, her empire began to wobble. One skincare brand quietly postponed their contract. A fitness company pulled her promo code from their website. Soon, whispers swirled in the influencer community. Sierra Monroe wasn't reliable. Meanwhile, my parents grew desperate. They left voicemail after voicemail, alternating between threats and pleas. "Rachel, this isn't you," my mother cried in one message. "You're better than this." My father added in another, "We'll make it up to you, just come to Christmas. Let's talk like a family." I listened to every word, saved every recording. Each one was a reminder of how little they saw me until I withheld the one thing they wanted, my money. And yet, I knew this couldn't just be about exposing their dependence. It had to sting in a way they would never forget. That's when I added one final twist to my plan. Through a friend in finance, I learned Sierra had recently signed a lease for a dream condo downtown, a lease co-signed by my parents. The payments were astronomical, even higher than their mortgage. They were banking on me stepping in again, playing the savior, keeping their fragile tower from crumbling. But I wouldn't lift a finger. In fact, I prepared to make sure the entire family saw just how deep they had dug themselves. Christmas was coming, and instead of gifts, I would hand them truth, sharp, cold, and undeniable. For the first time in my life, I felt in control. They had always underestimated me. But this time, I wasn't just their invisible daughter. I was their reckoning. Christmas Eve arrived like a scene from a postcard. Snow dusting the roof, a tree glittering in the window, gifts stacked high under its branches. From the outside, it looked perfect. But the closer I stepped inside, the more I saw the cracks. My parents' smiles were brittle, stretched too tight. Their eyes darted nervously toward the unopened stack of mail on the mantel. Mortgage notices, no doubt. And Sierra, wrapped in sequins, posed for selfies as if the world wasn't crumbling under her feet. I had rehearsed this moment 100 times. But when the time came, I didn't need theatrics. I just needed the truth. I set the binder on the coffee table with a heavy thud. The chatter died. All eyes turned to me. "This," I said, voice steady, "is the last gift you'll ever get from me." Confusion rippled through the room. My father frowned. My mother tilted her head. Sierra rolled her eyes. Then I opened it. Page after page, I laid out the proof. Every mortgage payment I had covered, every medical bill I had settled, every dollar wired to Sierra's student loans, her credit cards, even her shiny new Jeep. Each section was highlighted, tabbed, impossible to deny. Gasps filled the room. My uncle leaned forward, muttering, 60 grand. My aunt shook her head, whispering, all Rachel. The silence that followed was suffocating. My father opened his mouth, then closed it again. My mother's lips trembled, but no apology came. And Sierra, for once, her Instagram-ready smile faltered. But I wasn't done. "You want to know where your Golden Girls empire is headed?" I said, pulling out a second folder. This one held letters, termination notices from Sierra's sponsors. One by one, I placed them on the table like playing cards. A fitness brand had cited loss of credibility. A skincare line referenced failure to meet contractual obligations. A lifestyle company pointed directly to fraudulent follower activity. Every letter was official. Every word shredded Sierra's carefully crafted image. Her face drained of color. You did this," she stammered. I looked her dead in the eye. "No, you did this. I just stopped covering for you." Murmurs rippled through the room. For the first time in my life, the family wasn't looking at Sierra with adoration. They were staring at her with disbelief, even pity. And still, I had one more card to play. I reached into my bag and pulled out a crisp folder. Inside was a deed, a property deed. I laid it flat on the table, letting the gold seal catch the glow of the Christmas lights. "With the money I saved by cutting you off," I said, "I bought myself something." Sierra squinted at the paper. My mother leaned closer, her breath hitching when she read the words. "An apartment," I explained, "in Seattle. Paid in full. I'm leaving next week." The room erupted. "You can't just walk away," my mother cried, her voice rising, brittle with panic. "Watch me," I said calmly. Sierra lunged forward, snatching one of the sponsor letters. "You ruined me. Do you have any idea what you've done to my career?" "Yes," I answered flatly. "I exposed you. That's not ruin, that's reality catching up." My father slammed his fist on the table. "We're family. Families don't abandon each other like this." I met his gaze, steady and unblinking. "You abandoned me years ago. You just didn't notice, because I was still paying your bills." The silence that followed was deafening. 4 years, I had been the invisible daughter, the one who worked quietly, paid quietly, lived quietly. But in that moment, I wasn't invisible anymore. I was undeniable. The Christmas lights twinkled above us, but the warmth was gone. Sierra sat trembling, clutching the letters that stripped her shiny world bare. My parents looked small, like children caught in a lie. And me. I felt free. I gathered my binder, my folders, and slid them back into my bag. "Merry Christmas," I said, my voice like steel. "Enjoy the holiday. This is the last one we'll ever spend together." And with that, I walked out of their house, not in anger, but in triumph. For the first time, I wasn't walking away from something. I was walking toward my future. The fallout was swift, merciless, and for the first time in my life, it wasn't me picking up the pieces. Within 3 weeks, the bank posted the foreclosure notice on my parents' front lawn. The neighbors whispered, scandals circling like vultures. My mother tried to spin it as a temporary financial setback, but everyone knew the truth. The safety net they'd hidden behind was gone. I wasn't bailing them out anymore. Sierra, meanwhile, was spiraling. Her Instagram feed shifted overnight. The glossy images of brunches and designer bags gave way to shaky videos filmed in dim rooms. She tried to cry on camera, blaming jealous haters and fake rumors, but the internet has a way of sniffing out weakness. The comments turned brutal. Fraud. Liar. Living off your sister's money. Sponsors that hadn't dropped her yet fled after those posts went viral. Her perfect image cracked wide open. I watched from Seattle, not gloating, just breathing. For the first time, my money went into my life, not theirs. I had a 6-figure salary, a corner apartment with glass windows overlooking the bay, and freedom. Real, unshakable freedom. I decorated my space with things that made me smile. Bookshelves stacked with novels, plants in every corner, art I bought with my own paycheck. I hosted dinners with co-workers who actually valued me, and when I laughed, it wasn't through clenched teeth anymore. But justice, true justice, came 6 months later. It was a rainy night. My phone buzzed, a number I didn't recognize at first. I almost ignored it, but something in my chest told me to pick up. Hello. The voice on the other end was trembling, thin, broken. Rachel, it's me. Sierra. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. I could hear her shallow breathing, the sound of someone trying not to sob. Finally, she whispered, I get it now. I stayed silent, letting the weight of her words hang. I'm sorry, she continued. I should have thanked you. I should have, God, I should have been a sister. Her voice cracked on the last word. Memories flashed, her laughing while I worked double shifts, my mother brushing off my achievements, the endless checks I wrote to cover debts that weren't mine. And now, Sierra was drowning in the wreckage of her own choices. Rachel, she asked softly, can we start over? I closed my eyes, gripping the phone tighter. Part of me wanted to scream, to unload years of hurt. But another part, the stronger part, realized I didn't need to. Her downfall wasn't my victory speech. It was hers. I drew in a slow breath. Sierra, I hear you. I'm glad you finally see it. But forgiveness, that's not something I can hand over tonight. It's something you'll have to earn. Silence. Then a shaky, I understand. And for the first time, I believed her. I didn't hang up feeling bitter. I didn't feel robbed, or small, or erased. I felt steady, powerful. Because hearing Sierra admit the truth, that was justice enough. She could rebuild if she wanted to. She could rise again, maybe even as someone better. But me, I had already risen. The next morning, I stood by my window in Seattle, the city glowing under the sunrise. And I realized something. Revenge hadn't made me cruel. It hadn't poisoned me. It had freed me. For the first time, I wasn't the invisible daughter. I was Rachel Monroe. Independent, respected, seen. And no one, not even my family, could take that from me again. 1 year later, on my 31st birthday, I sat in my Seattle apartment, the city skyline glittering behind me. The room was alive with laughter, co-workers, neighbors, and friends I had gathered over the past year. My chosen family. People who celebrated me not for what I could give them, but simply for being me. A cake sat on the counter, candles lit, wax dripping. When the lights dimmed and they all sang, "Happy Birthday," I felt something I hadn't in decades. Seen. Every note of that song wrapped around me like armor, like proof that I had built something real. My parents didn't call. Not a text. Not an email. And for the first time, I didn't ache for their voices. I didn't stare at my phone, wondering if maybe they'd remember this year. But Sierra sent a card. It was plain, nothing flashy. Just her handwriting, scrawled across the inside. I'm still sorry. I hope someday you'll let me prove it. Love, Sierra. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. But it was enough. Because here's the thing. I didn't need her apology to heal. I didn't need my parents' approval to validate my worth. Their silence no longer felt like a void. It felt like space. Space I had filled with new traditions, new people, new love. In that silence, I found freedom. Over the next year, my life expanded in ways I hadn't thought possible. My career flourished. I earned a promotion and managed a team that respected me. I traveled Italy, Greece, even the mountains of Colorado. Trips I paid for with my own money, guilt-free, without the weight of someone else's needs chaining me down. But the greatest change wasn't the travel or the promotion. It was the calm. The quiet in my chest when I woke up. The way I no longer second-guessed myself in every decision. The way I no longer rehearsed conversations in my head, trying to win approval that was never coming. I was no longer chasing scraps of affection from people who had decided long ago I wasn't enough. I was writing my own story, one page at a time. And yes, sometimes I thought of Sierra. Sometimes I wondered if she really had changed, or if her words were just another way to reach for me when she had nothing left. But I didn't dwell on it. If she grew into someone better, maybe one day our paths would cross again. If not, that was her journey to walk, not mine to carry. The last trace of bitterness left me one quiet evening as I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine. The sun dipped behind the water, painting the sky in shades of fire and gold. And I whispered out loud, "Thank you." Not to my family, not to Sierra, but to myself. For surviving, for fighting, for finally choosing me. Because that's what revenge had truly given me. It wasn't about destroying them. It wasn't about watching them crumble. It was about cutting the ties that had bound me in invisibility. It was about stepping out of the shadows and claiming my life as my own. I am Rachel Monroe. I am not second best. I am not a wallet. I am not invisible. I am whole. I am free. And I will never again let anyone, family or not, use me, erase me, or make me doubt my worth. The party roared back to life behind me, music and laughter spilling into the night. I raised my glass toward the skyline, toward the future. To freedom. To justice. To me. This story is not just about family betrayal or lost money. It's about reclaiming self-worth. Too often, the people closest to us are the ones who take the most, assuming our love means endless sacrifice. But love without respect is exploitation. And dignity, once reclaimed, is more valuable than any dollar amount. Rachel's revenge wasn't about destruction. It was about release. She didn't burn bridges. She simply refused to keep carrying the weight of others who never carried her. That choice, quiet but firm, was her ultimate act of justice. Sometimes, revenge is not loud. It's the courage to walk away, the courage to build a life on your own terms, and the courage to finally say, "Enough." So I ask you, what would you have done in Rachel's place? Have you ever been used, underestimated, or erased by the very people who should have lifted you up? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear your voice. And if this tale struck a chord, make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Because justice isn't always about punishment. Sometimes, it's simply about choosing yourself first.